Hello, my at-home learners. We are going to make a shape, line, and texture lion. So you're going to need a white piece of paper, and you're going to need some markers, crayons, and also a texture. So I have a texture plate. This is a fancy art supply that I have in the art room here that I'm going to use for my lion. But if you don't have something like this, you can search around your house and look for something that might have texture on it. I know one really great place, but you'll have to have an adult go with you. You'll need to go outside, and on your sidewalk or your driveway, you'll have either pavers or concrete, and that will make a great texture. You just take your crayons out there with you and work on it, but make sure you ask an adult before you go. So we're going to start off with our white piece of paper, and we're going to draw our line. So I'm going to grab my brown marker. I'm going to leave my other lion here right next to us so we can see what he looks like. So I'm going to start by drawing a big rectangle. Rectangles have two long sides and two short sides. Now, some of my students have already drawn a lion like this, but we did his hair a little different. So you're gonna watch when we get to that point. But then I'm gonna draw a circle, but it's not quite close because it's bumping up against that rectangle. Then I'm gonna draw another smaller circle inside of it. And then I'm going to do the outside, another on the other side, because he needs two ears, right? Not just one. That would be silly. Okay, so we have his ears. Then we're going to put some eyes. I'm going to put big eyes on this guy. The last line we did, we made little eyes, but he's really looking. And you can make his eyes however you want. So on my example here, I have him kind of looking cross-eyed at each other. This one, I'm going to put his eyes a little more at the bottom. Then we're going to make his nose. And if you notice, his nose is a triangle. So I'm going to draw it, but it's upside down. So the point is facing to his chin. Then I'm going to color that in. Then off of the corners of the rectangle, I'm going to come up and make another triangle. This time this triangle is pointing to the other triangle. And then I'm going to color it in. If you are a little more advanced and you'd like to add some teeth to your lion, you can do that. So I'm making little triangles. And then I'm going to color in around those triangles, being very careful not to bump the triangle and make his teeth brown. Okay, now I'm all done with his teeth. And if you're not advanced, that's okay. You can just color that whole area in brown. And then I'm going to draw a line from the one triangle to the other. That's going to be his face. Now our lion's still missing something. He needs some whiskers. So coming out of his cheeks here, I'm going to draw some whiskers. And you can pick however many you want. I'm going to do 3 on this one. The other example I did 4. It's really up to you. So right now, if we look back at what we've used a rectangle for his head. We've used circles for his ears. We used ovals for his eyes. We used a triangle for his nose. We used another triangle for his mouth, a triangle for his teeth, and we've used some straight lines for his whiskers and his little space between his lips. So now I'm going to go ahead and put away my brown marker for a second. And I'm going to get out my yellow marker because we're going to make his hair. Now, you have a couple choices of lines that you want to make. If you want to make loop-de-loo lines, that's fine. If you want to make zigzag line, that's okay. If you want your lines to be straight. These are all choices that you get to make. But you're going to use your markers and your crayons to draw those lines. I'm going to use my yellow marker to just make some straight lines coming out from my rectangle. I'm going to go all the way around because he has that big fluffy hair. Now I'm going to put down my yellow. I'm going to pick up my orange. This time I'm going to make some loop-de-loos. Our little corkscrewy lines. Our little loops. They have a bunch of different names that we can call them. It's almost like some fancy little curls in his hair. Alright, and then I'm going to pick back up my brown. I forgot to do my brown, so I'm going to do some zigzags with that line. I kind of go in between the other colors. Okay. Now, just to kind of make this a little more fancy, I'm going to use my crayons to draw those lines too, but I'm going to switch the line. So I'm going to use orange, and instead of doing a loop-de-loo, I'm going to make straight lines with my orange crayon. I'm going to go all the way around his face. Then I'm going to use my yellow crayon, and instead of making straight lines, I'm going to make zigzags. This might be a little hard to see on camera because it's such a bright yellow, but I'm going to make them, and I can see it here in person. All right, and then my last one is brown, and instead of making a zigzag like I did with the marker, I'm going to make a loop-de-loo. Oop, I went over his ear a little bit. That's okay, because sometimes hair goes in front of your ears too, right? Okay. Now I have some coloring in to do. So I'm going to color his ears with my crayon. So I'm going to color the outside of his ear with brown. Remember, I'm taking my time and going slow so I fill in all that space. I don't go outside my line, so if you go slower when you get to the edges, that will help. And then I'm going to color the inside of his ears orange. And again, you can pick the colors you want the inside and the outside of his ears to be, but I made his outside brown and his inside orange. Now, this is the special time. This is when we're going to get our texture plate. Now, my students that are in class are going to get a real texture plate. Those of you at home, like I said, you're going to have to ask an adult, mom, dad, grandma, whoever's at home, to help you do this. So we're going to take that texture plate, and you're just going to go outside, or you might have something in your house, and you're going to set your paper on top of it. Make sure it's all underneath your paper. And then you're going to take your crayon, and you're going to use your crayon to color in the face of the lion. Okay, so I'm coloring over this, and we can see, and we did this last time on our last project, we used these texture plates to get this texture. So you're going to see the texture start coming alive, going slow when I get to his eyes because I don't want to put any brown in it. And I'm holding it. See, this other hand here is staying in place. It's holding everything nice and firm and nice and secure so it doesn't slide around. I got to move my hands a little bit. Remember, when you're using a texture plate, or even when you're outside, if you will go outside with an adult, make sure you don't want to push too hard with the crayon, because if you push too hard, you just get rid of all the texture. Doesn't make anything. So now I'm all done, and you see how it made that pattern there? That's kind of cool, and that's what it looked like on the texture plate. And then when I rubbed over it, you could see it made that texture. So you guys are all done. You've made your texture, shape, line, lion. That's hard to say. Thanks for joining me.